Hello, and thank you for joining me on my hobby adventure. I'm Dan, and this is Forlorn Hobbies. Welcome to episode 3 of Quick and Easy Painting, where we look at coming up with simple techniques to paint good-looking minis to a tabletop standard. Now, in today's episode, we will be looking at the dreaded horse. Now, if you're like me, cavalry charges are some of the most dynamic and inspiring pieces of art or film that really motivate me to paint armies. However, I absolutely hate painting horses. That is until I stumbled across this new technique, well, newish technique, that involves contrast paints. And now I find painting horses to be an absolute doddle. Here are a list of paints that we will be using in this video. All paints will be by Citadel unless otherwise stated. I've started by undercoating 4 horses, 3 of them being undercoated with grey cere because they will be used to paint the darker horses, and the last horse will be sprayed with matte white from Colourforge. I will then apply them to the MDF bases afterwards, as I will be using Geek Gaming Scenics, so I find that the plain MDF is much better than grey cere if any of the basing materials fall off. Now, we're going to start with the brown horse step by step. Now, I'll add a caveat here. When it comes to horses and contrast, literally just pick a contrast paint that you are happy with and apply it to the horse, because all the results are quick and easy. But for this one, I will be focusing on a chestnut horse. Now I'm going to take Gorgrunter fur, shake it well, and then apply it liberally over all of the horse area, but taking care to just avoid the mane and the tail and the socks, although we will touch these up later. We'll now use black templar to paint the mane and the tail of the horse. Make sure it's shaken well, and be careful to avoid getting it on any of the brown areas. Now we're going to just tidy up the areas for the socks and the markings on the top of the head. Now for this I used grey cere and just applied it carefully. It's often a good idea to have an image of a horse as a visual reference at this point. I also took the opportunity to just tidy up the saddlecloth area with grey cere to prep it for a later stage. Now I will use Apothecary White to cover those previously whitened areas on the socks and on the head markings, just to give it a little bit of definition. I'm then going to finish off the head by taking Darko Flesh and just applying it around the nose and the mouth of the horse, just to give it a more realistic skin-like complexion. We move on to painting the hoofs with Abaddon Black, taking care to avoid getting any on the white areas of the socks. Now it's time to paint the saddlecloth. Now in this guide there is no specific regiment that I am painting. I'm just filling it in to make the model complete. However, at this point, this is where you will use whatever colour that your guide for your specific Napoleonic livery, historical livery, or whatever you wish to do, just to add that uniqueness to your model. So for this, I've just filled in the main saddlecloth using Flesh Tearer's red contrast paint. And then I have gone round the edges using Retributor armour. Now, just to add that final little bit of distinction to the horse's face, I've taken Arctic White and I have blocked out the eye areas of the horse before going in with Abaddon Black to create a pupil, trying to aim for quite a large pupil like horses have. Now, if you wish to at this stage, you can add another colour in, like a brown, just to represent the irises, although this I find is a little bit too advanced for quick and easy painting when you just want to get something on the tabletop. Now we move on to the straps and the saddle. Now, depending on the shade of brown or grey or black or white of the horse, at this point I would just use a Wyldwood contrast over it, taking extra care to be neat. However, because I'm painting 3 darker colour horses, I'm going to paint it in a slightly more traditional way, using Dryad bark to cover the saddle and all the straps on the horse. To create just a little bit of extra definition to the saddle areas and the straps, I'm going to now use Doomball Brown just to give it a little bit of an extra depth to the model. We'll use Leadbelcher to pick out any metal buckles or bridle in the horse's mouth. Now, most modelled horses come with grass tufts that offer them an extra dynamic stability. So we're just going to cover this using Militarum Green contrast paint. We're going to apply Agrax Earthshade to all the strap areas and the saddle, and the gold trim on the saddlecloth of the Mini, just to give it that final blend together. Now, just to give it that little extra bit of definition, we're going to use Mechanicus Standard Grey just to dry brush it over those black areas to just give a little bit of extra depth and definition to the hair on the horse. Now we move on to painting the white horse. Now, to start with, we're going to use Apothecary White to cover all of the horse, except for the mane and the tail. This is just to add a greater depth of definition to all the muscles and movement of the horse. Once it is dry, we will then take Arctic White to dry brush all over the raised areas on the horse's muscle, just to add it a little bit of further definition. We will also avoid the tiny parts above the hoof where you want your socks to be on the horse, just to give it that darker transition through the model. We're going to use a sepia wash, in this case Seraphim Sepia from Citadel, to just add a distinctive colour to the mane and to the tail of the horse. Next we're going to take grey cere and just apply it to the snout and the nose area of the horse, as well as take the opportunity to tidy up the saddlecloth and make it one colour for later stages. We'll apply darko flesh to the nose and mouth of the horse, just to give it that more realistic look to the mini. Now, to achieve that dirty bone coloured look that most white horses have on their hooves, we're going to apply skeleton horde to these areas. Now we're going to move on to filling out the rest of the horse. This means painting the saddlecloths, and again, like I previously mentioned when painting the brown horse, this is just to give it a unified look on the completed model. And again, we're going to use fleshed hair as red to fill out the main areas, and then paint the trim with Retributor armour. We're also going to paint the eyes, first filling out the area with Arctic White, before using Abaddon Black to offer a large pupil on the mini. Now we're going to paint the straps. Using the same method as before, we're going to start off with applying dried bark to all the straps and the saddlecloth, and then we will then go over that, offering a highlight of Doomball Brown in the areas, just to give that extra bit of definition. Again, we will use Leadbelcher to paint the buckles and the bridle of the horse. Once again, Militarum Green will be applied to the grass tuft that is on the model to offer its stability for its more dynamic pose. Agrak Surfshade is then used to apply shade to all the straps and saddlecloth areas, just to bring it together and offer that final bit of blending to the mini. Now, to give that final bit of flair to the white horse, we're going to take Wraithbone and we're going to dry brush it onto the mane and tail. Now this just adds a further bit of definition and blends it a bit more into that white of the rest of the horse. Finally, we're going to take Arctic White, we're going to thin it down with a little bit of water, and then we're just going to apply it to any areas that need a slight tidy up from where the wash might have leaked a little bit and streaked, or the sepia, just to redefine those areas on the horse. Now, as previously mentioned, I'm now going to base the mini using the Scrublands Base Ready Mix by Geek Gaming. Now for this, obviously, I'm going to start by applying my fast drying basing glue all over the base before dipping it in the mix, and then just making sure that there is enough on each area. Once this is dried, I will then apply matte sealant just to seal everything together. And now it's time for the final reveal. As always, if there is anything that you wish to see a quick and easy guide on, please mention it in the comments below, and I will do my best to get round to it. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Until next time, enjoy your hobby.